As you know, in Quint, we develop a survey every year around cloud initiatives and cloud strategy in each country. So we are here with Haritza, who is in charge of all data and cloud initiatives in ROCHE, and we would like to know, and having your expectations and having your feedback around the strategy and use cases that you are developing in ROCHE right now. So thank you so much for having you here, and it's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be here, Andres. I really appreciate it. So in ROCHE, we are following a multi-cloud strategy, a hybrid multi-cloud strategy, where we are leveraging our existing data centers that are heavily optimized from the past years, where we have invested quite a lot on building our own premise data centers, but we are using more and more public cloud services. We've seen different business areas adopting the public cloud from a completely different use cases, spanning from the development of drugs, biological computation, manufacturing IoT, to different data lakes, where we are moving from a model where ROCHE used to deliver drugs or diagnostic devices to a place where we are starting more and more offering information technology as a product from the company, and we are leveraging the public cloud for that. No? So we have platforms like Navify, which is a platform provided for physicians to, whenever a patient is diagnosed a cancer, they call a tumor board, which is a virtual meeting that is a platform offered by ROCHE that it's running in the public cloud, where they bring knowledge and data from different angles, including scanners or blood samples, and they provide the best possible treatment for that patient, no? Embracing the personalized healthcare approach there.
You mentioned so many different use cases. Can you go deeper or explain us a little bit better the different use cases that you are working on it?
Yeah, as I said, we are having all sorts of use cases. Now we have tons of data. So a very important area for us, it's leveraging that data and analyzing from clinical trial data or real world data, and even combining those to look for the best possible treatment, because we are focusing a lot on personalized healthcare, as I mentioned before, and having the means in the public cloud to scale and do computation at a scale virtually without limit. It's helping us a lot to elaborate and look for specific patterns to provide the right treatment for the different patients, and even to develop new drugs. So that's one important use case. We are also seeing now that with COVID, more and more interaction with healthcare practitioners is done through platforms that are running in the public cloud. We are moving from a model where our staff would go and visit doctors in hospitals to a model where everything is becoming virtual. So these are great opportunities for our business areas to embrace the public cloud. What me and my team are doing more is focusing on providing shared services to ease the adoption of the public cloud. So to avoid that each of the business areas have to develop their own approach.
At this point, I have the doubt, because you are a multinational company and you work in different countries. How about the regulations and also the legislational point of view of the usage? For example, the private records for personalize the healthcare to your customers. What are your expectations, and also how you are accomplishing goals related to work in a cloud infrastructure with multiple legislations and regulations around the data?
So it's a great question and a tricky thing to solve, because we see that there are very different regulations depending on the region, in the country. Russia has a strong policy around patient data cannot leave Russian soil. China have their own policy for interacting with Chinese companies and managing the private data. We have REMS 2, which is a conflict right now between the the US legislation and the European one, where US one requires that data hosted by American companies would be available for the government, but that collides with the European GDPR. No? That doesn't allow European patient data to leave European soil. No? So all those are conflicts that we are trying to solve now. And we are doing this by ensuring that we are using the right region for hosting each type of data. Or in the case of China, for example, we are using local providers because this is what the government requires there. And we are using different providers compared to the rest of the global cases.
In the case of China and in the case of this kind of country that has a specific legislation or a specific regulation around the data and the businesses, you are working with local cloud providers. What is your experience? It's the same, the offering is the same, the technology change. You are able to, for example, to contract the same that in the Occidental or in United States region in China. What's your opinion about that?
So our experience is that it's not the same. I mean, even those companies that use the same name as they do globally, there are different legal entities, so we need to have different contracts with them. But also in terms of technology, the pace of adoption or offering of services in the public cloud is different. So sometimes something that's been developed to run in the global provider does not necessarily directly run in the Chinese region. No? So we need to do adjustments. And then what we've seen also is that it's much easier for us to work with local integrators to help us the adoption of the Chinese cloud because they have the technical knowledge, but also they know the specifics of the country. No? So this is what the main difference we are perceiving.
So as you are working with different providers in different countries, what are your opinion about, or maybe your suggestion or recommendation about, it's better if we start just to using, for example, a single provider as our cloud provider, or do you want to start, or maybe our customers must start with a multi-cloud approach?
So my personal experience is that it's better to start with one. You can choose the one that suits better you or your experience or the integrator you are working with knows better. There are different criteria to choose the best one for you. And then, based on needs or based on use cases, look for additional providers. But try to focus on one. No? Our experience at least is that if you try to embrace too many, the complexity grows exponentially and becomes really complicated. You might be losing the advantage of having data gravity on a single provider. So it might complicate things. No? It's also important to mention that it's very important to have an exit strategy also in those cases. No? I mean, if you focus on one provider and then scale based on needs because the provider you chosen first doesn't have the capabilities you might need, it's important to have a proper exit strategy.
Nice. So also related with the infrastructure operation and also the talent that you need as a company to operate in a cloud world, do you know or do you think that it's very easy right now to find the right talent in the market? Just not only in the Spanish market as we have here, also in the other countries. And what are the different topics that you are looking for in those talent? And you are looking, for example, infrastructure as a code. What are you looking for?
So yeah, the talent management and the knowledge management is one of the most complicated experiences for us when embracing the cloud. No? Because first of all, because it's hard or it's difficult to transform someone who's been working on premises for many years to work in the public cloud is a completely different approach. No? From a more static way of doing things and more traditional way of things to do it for infrastructure as code, as you mentioned, that requires quite some investment. No? So we are approaching this talent gap, let's say, through three different ways. Now, one is by upskilling our people. We are training them. We are investing a lot in training them in areas like infrastructure as code, as you mentioned, or reliability engineering, and moving more into a view of an end-to-end view compared to previously we were more focused on technology layers. So we are trying to embrace the use of platforms and development of platforms as products. So we are focusing a lot there for our internal staff. We are also trying to attract talent from outside of the company, so hire people in different locations. And third one is working with third parties, no, other companies. Our experience with other companies, it's been quite different depending on the provider, but we have noticed that working with the specialized providers has worked best for us, no? Specializing in cloud. So answering you the other part of your question, when talking about how easy it is to find talent, it's really difficult. And our experience is that it happens globally. I mean, there is a high demand of skilled people. There are not so many in the market, and the market is really dynamic and really competitive. So even the cloud providers themselves are really fighting hard to keep and move talent. No? So those are the areas that we are focusing more, and it's really it's one of the biggest challenges we have.
And also related with the big challenges that you are working on it, which ones are the biggest challenges that you are putting focus right now here?
So as I said, one is the talent gap. How do we upskill our people, and how do we bring talent from outside? And as I said, we have had this experience of the talent gap in all the regions where we are present, not only in Spain, but also in Warsaw, in Poland, where we have a big development center, or in Malaysia and China, in the US, or in Costa Rica, to mention some of the places where we have our offices. It's a big challenge to find talent and attract it. And as I said, that's I would say the biggest one. To mention another one, it's also the pace of change of technology, in the public cloud. It's really dynamic, and this is one of the advantages that, as we mentioned, on the flexibility and the offering, but it changes so fast and so quick that it's hard to maintain the pace, from a technology perspective. So I would mention those two.
Thank you so much, Haritza. It was a pleasure. It was a really pleasure discuss with you around the digital strategy and how ROCHE is implementing that. I would like to say thank you to you guys that are watching this streaming, and I would like to say you that in the future we will like to have you also in our streamings, and thank you for your time.